It's December 21st, 2021, and I'm just down here in the studio. I'm getting set up to work on our next Christmas song with Jean, something called Maybe for Christmas. And to get myself in the spirit, I brought up last year's Christmas track, Weird Christmas, and I have the project up here, and as I was listening to it, I thought it might be fun to take you guys on a little bit of a tour through the song, give you a bit of the backstory, and some of the interesting bits along the way. So come along with me as I unwrap last year's Christmas miracle, Weird Christmas. So it was sort of late November 2020 as we're coming up first Christmas of the pandemic, if you will, and certainly it's a bit of a different feel compared to any previous year. And Jean had this idea to do sort of a darker themed Christmas song. He's always been a fan of those sort of the sadder and darker Christmas songs. So it was late November, and he was messing around in GarageBand, and he sent us this track that I'm going to play for you right now. So clearly synth-driven. We liked it. Heard some kind of a Depeche Mode sort of thing, but needed something to amp it up a little bit to give it that Vice Parade treatment. So anyways, we were all really happy with the idea, and we all agreed, like, okay, this is definitely making the list, and given that Christmas is right around the corner, we really need to get on this and get it out the door. But we didn't work on it. In fact, we didn't work on it until I think it was the 12th of December. So really 12 days to Christmas. So it was either December 11th or December 12th, and we were due to jam. It was a Saturday. I woke up super early that morning, knew it was our chance to work on Weird Christmas. So I kept listening to the demo track, just sitting on the couch with my guitar unplugged, trying to sort out what the chord sequence was. So I was listening away to that arpeggio line, kind of figured out, okay, we got F minor, got an A flat, got an E flat, got a B flat. So what could I do with that? And as I kept hammering those chords over and over again, I sort of played around with it a little bit, and I came up with something that, when plugged in, sounded like... I was like, okay, now we got some rock and roll on this track. So at that point in time, I headed down into the studio. I had to get this down over top of the existing tracks. But I needed that synthesizer. So once I came up with that guitar part, I rushed right down into the studio, started setting up a project to work on the track, and I tried like hell to recreate that crazy arpeggio line, this one right here, that was in the demo track. And with all the crazy amount of gear that I have at my disposal, I just couldn't work it out. So basically I phoned a friend. I asked Jean if he could send me the original track out of GarageBand, which fortunately he still had, and he sent it to me in a text. I loaded that up on the computer and sliced it down to basically my favorite little bit. But it wasn't quite rock and roll enough for me, so I added a little bit of distortion onto it, and what I ended up doing was I changed this into this. So a little bit more drive on it, and then actually what happens a little bit later on in the song, I increase that drive level, so you can hear it's getting quite gritty, quite distorted, but it gives it a good attitude. Okay, so once I had the guitar part worked out and I had the synth arpeggio stolen from Jean and imported into the project, it was time to work on a bass line. So what I did was I basically pulled up a bunch of presets from some software synthesizers that I have, and I was going through them, and I really wasn't finding anything that was giving me any joy. So on a whim, I decided to try this software plugin called Form, which I'd never used before, and it's kind of neat. So I think this is a little bit interesting because what you're hearing on this track is not actually a bass at all. Even though it sounds a bit like a bass and a cello, what it actually is just my F chord that starts off the chorus. And so I'll pull up Form, and I'll show you how that sound is created. There we go. And basically what I did was I took the F chord that I had in there, and I brought it in as a sample. So if I look here at Sample Select, and I hit Preview, that is just a nice F suspended chord. But what Form does is it basically drops somewhere in the waveform and starts scanning back and forth and plays it with a little bit of motion and modulation on it. And so what you end up with is this. So the faster I strike the key, the more of that washy sound we get. Soft, hard. Okay, so this is the story of the actual recording. So we usually jam, I think, on Sunday or Saturday mornings. Sometime around 11 o'clock is when the lads actually showed up, and we set up basically with a typical sort of jam type setup like we have in the room here today. Paul at the E-kit, me at my sort of noise station over here, and Jean over there on the vocal mic. Everything kind of live off the floor, and there's some real evidence of that in the tracks. So if I solo the vocal track here, we can kind of hear what the noise in the room sounded like with the sound of the electronic kit. And the other thing that you can hear, as I just noticed while listening to the vocal track in solo, is that I was guiding the guys with respect to the arrangement of the song, because I was most familiar with what I had put together at this point in time. So
nearing Christmas, you could almost.
So you can hear the sound of Paul hitting the cymbals. So that's probably the hi-hat that you can hear there.
Yeah, this horrible year.
And you can hear me call out.
What can be said to make us forget?
So basically, we recorded it live. We did a bunch of takes. Everything was all effectively recorded to a click track because we had those sequenced bits. So we had probably 5 or 6 different takes that we were able to kind of compile the best bits from. Time to talk about the drum track. So in order to record the bits that I had done before the guys showed up, I had programmed up a basic beat that mirrored kind of what was in Jean's original track. And basically what happened was, as soon as Paul showed up, he had a better idea. So to him, immediately it was 4 on the floor kick with this sort of hi-hat rhythm, and immediately it sort of became obvious it's kind of a dance number. So what I'll do right now is kind of take you on a little bit of a tour through the drums and how they evolved with a little bit of studio trickery. So the raw performance sounds pretty much like this. I think I quantized the hi-hats just a little bit to make it sound just a little bit more machine-like. And then I I wanted to add a little bit of motion onto the sound. So what I did was I took a little delay, a little digital delay, and put it on the hi-hat. And so what we end up with is something that sounds like this. So you hear a bit of that hi-hat on the left, and then the delay on the right. Just gives you a little bit of a stereo width and kind of accentuates the groove a little bit. The next thing that I did was I wanted to punch up the snare in particular in the chorus. So I added a second snare on there. Let's take a look. So basically it's this little sample player here. Just a very clicky snare with a bunch of reverb on it. And when I add that into the track, we end up with this. The next thing that I did, and this one's kind of interesting because it's one of those moments that you just totally forget about, but there is an interesting kind of kick sound that happens in the chorus. So let me solo that up. That is a super detuned kick drum that is layered on top of the original one. And when you play them all together, you end up with something that sounds like this. You could make a club mix right out of that. Basically, early on, once Paul showed up and we kind of landed on that drum part, we realized we had a little bit of a problem. So, and that was that we had one verse and we had a chorus. We needed some other parts in order to stretch this thing out into a 3-minute tune. So Jean went away to write a verse, and Paul and I worked on the little guitar break, which sounds like this.
We'll lead all of us out.
So let me deconstruct that for you. So the pattern itself is basically, I'm just following the bass line and doing a little ostinato, that down, on, down, that's on top. That's the whole way through. So super simple, but, you know, catchy and hooky. So I'll deconstruct the tracks here. Everything is double tracked on the guitars, and there's one heavily affected break guitar. So if I pull up what's on that track, there's an EQ. There's a weird filter that's moving back and forth. There's an echo. And there's this pan thing that's going sort of side to side. So effects-wise, I think there's a big fuzz tones. Was trying to go for some kind of a Jimi Hendrix-y sort of sound. Don't know that I succeeded, but it's pretty cool nonetheless. So there's a couple tracks behind it, and that's the ostinato parts. The down, down. Just emphasizing that part. So you add in the lead break, and that's what you get. So once Paul and I had landed on that guitar break part, Jean came back and he had written the second verse, and we basically stole from the Ramones playbook, and third verse, same as the first, except we kind of did it as a little bit of a breakdown, and basically we had the song structure completed. I did a marathon mix session that night, probably up till 1 a.m. or so, just working on refining the mix. Basically had the whole thing ready to go, and we actually had a window to shoot a video the next day for just a few hours. So if you want to hear the story behind the shooting of the video and how that all came together, there's some interesting little tidbits in that story. Just let me know in comments, and hope you guys enjoyed this little tour of Weird Christmas Unwrapped. And stay tuned. I'm really looking forward to working on maybe for Christmas tonight with Jean. We'll see if we can recapture a little bit of the magic and the pressure that Weird Christmas brought us. Thanks.